Good evening, ladies. I'm going to share with you a situation that Mrs. Poisson ran into. I think it may be beneficial at some point. You all might run into something similar. And just to let you know, I couldn't figure this out. So, I mean, she reported what was going on, and I ended up resorting to using this, and I would say it works pretty well. So don't hesitate if you run into a situation. Just hit chat and they'll talk you through it. But also don't hesitate. I realize you got stuff going on in your life. If you want to forward it to me, uh, I'm cool with that too. But I just want to give this guy credit because I didn't figure this out. All right, so Mrs. Poisson was working with a student trying to adjust her placement tests. Okay, and she messaged me that she was trying to enroll her and she couldn't for some reason. So we're going to go to courses, or course enrollment, I'm sorry, and search. And this is what I did. I don't know if what Mrs. Poisson did. And then scroll down, and she was working with the student here. She had the student scheduled for multiple placement tests. She was trying to clean it up. One of the placement tests, that it was language arts, was put on hold, and she was trying to reschedule it, re-enroll the student. Excuse me, I'm not going to go through the process, but I did probably what she did. I clicked add enrollment, tried to enroll the student in language arts, and I came back to the screen, nothing. Well, here's what happened. If you go all the way back to the top, notice what this says: enrollment status active. If you click the down arrow, notice there's multiple options. In this case, the person on the chat says just click all. Click search. And then if you go all the way back down to the student, lo and behold, there it is. That's why it wasn't appearing, because it was already there. Now, we can fix that by going right here. And I'm not going to do that just yet. Because I'm also going to show you, maybe you figured this out, but if you haven't, how you have them skip tests they don't need to take. All right. And if you read the directions in Ignatia, they say before you skip any tests they don't need to take, you should leave it on hold, or you should put it on hold. So we'll leave it there. And we're going to go to gradebook. We're going to look at enrollment status and go on hold, because we have put the course on hold. And then we're going to click search. And if you go down to the student that we want, which I just went by, and you click the plus arrow, there it is, language arts. Now, this student happens to be a third grader, but for the moment, let's pretend they're in 8th grade. If they're in 8th grade, you're going to start them in 6th grade, which means they don't need to see these, they don't need to take them. So you skip them. And there's their placement test. But Mrs. Ancona happened to be testing a 7th grade student today. And all of a sudden I had this little light bulb moment. I went in and maybe you all have thought of this, I didn't, but in case not, I said to Mrs. Ancona, do you ever have a student test above their grade? She says, very rarely. I really don't have a need to. So I talked about Ignatia, and she said, well, if you got an 8th grade student, why are you leaving these open? So all of a sudden, this becomes their placement test. But then she threw me another question. She said, if I have an 8th grade student unless there's some special reason, they don't do 8th grade either. I generally stop them at 7th grade. I'll start them 2 grades back. Maybe you can make an argument they start in 5th grade. But she says, I'm not expecting them to know 8th grade level. She said, now there might be a special reason why you would do that. I mean, I suppose you could make an argument that you start them in 5th grade. They just finished 7th, so you're starting them in 5th grade. But knowing some of the students, you could probably do something like this. If you know they really struggle in math, maybe you open that up. So just think about that when you're scheduling your students. Now, if you have a question, some of you may not know the student that well. If you have a question, maybe, Mrs. Poisson is going to be doing most of the her students, but she might do a couple in junior high. So maybe shoot Mrs. Ancona a question and just ask and get her feedback. All right. So hopefully this helps. But I'm going to open these back up because this student is not an 8th grader. They're a 3rd grader. And if they're a 3rd grader, they don't need to do these. But then as Mrs. Ancona and I were talking, she said, why is it important for the 3rd grader, somebody that's going into 3rd grade, to take a 3rd grade placement test? So Mrs. Poisson, you will know this better than I will. If you feel Layton is on level for reading in particular, and she's on level for English, then maybe we just start her on 3rd grade. But if she is a little behind in something, you can shoot me a private message on that, and we can talk about it. Then that would open up some questions. But if she basically is where she should be, if she's a pretty good student, I'm betting we just start her in 3rd grade. So she doesn't need to take a placement test. So I'm going to leave this 3rd grade open, and I'm going to let Mrs. Poisson decide. But the rest of you, if you have questions, message me privately on the student, but you can go ahead and adjust your students accordingly. But if we were going to activate this now that it's on hold, go by the person's name and click Go To Course Enrollment. And this is going to bring you right back where where we started from, which, by the way, we could have done when we were here in the first place. We could have clicked Go To and Gradebook. So there's a shortcut. And then you need to go up here and you need to go on hold, search. And there it is, edit, active. Now I'm going to leave this on hold because Mrs. Poisson may decide to do something. She may just avoid this altogether. I don't know. But this is how you would make this active once it's on hold. All right, so I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to send a list out shortly of who should be working with what, with which student, just to avoid any confusion. And other than that, I hope you found this beneficial. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, let me know.